Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexander Cayozo with the Bureau of Street Services. I'm a landscape architect and project manager. And with me today is Ernesto Gonzalez. Ernesto, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ernesto Gonzalez. I am a landscape architectural associate with the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Street Services.
Great, thank you, Ernesto. And today we're going to be talking about urban cooling first last mile strategies for Canoga Park. And this is actually a CalTrans adaptation planning grant that Streets LA, Bureau of Street Services, applied for, and we actually partnered with the consultants Climate Resolve and Alta Planning and Design. So we're really excited to share with you this adaptation planning grant that we worked on. So before we get into the details of the adaptation grant, we wanted to explain a bit more on who we are as a bureau and our role within the city. Starting from the top, as you can see in this graphic, there of course is the office of the mayor with the 15 council offices or council districts below, and then the governing board of the Board of Public Works. Within the Department of Public Works, there are 5 bureaus, one being us, the Street Services, or our new nickname, Streets LA, Bureau of Street Lighting, who lights the streets and sidewalks in Los Angeles, Bureau of Engineering, who takes care of our bridges and rivers, and Bureau of Contract Administration and the Department of Sanitation, the men and women who actually come and remove the trash from the streets on a daily basis. At Streets LA, we are proud to have a large design build group of landscape architects, engineers, grant writers, and a construction team, which really aligned us to work on this adaptation grant. In addition, Streets LA manages the large urban forest within the city of LA. So I'm going to talk a little bit, though, first on the project background. Funded by the CalTrans Adaptation Planning Grant, and again, as I mentioned, partnering with outside consultants, Alta Planning and Design, as well as Climate Resolve. The goals of the Adaptation Planning Grant were to create a toolkit of design solutions that reduce heat and help people more comfortably and safely access transit, ultimately encouraging a mode shift. Two was getting community and stakeholder feedback on these high-level design concepts. And the third was positioning the city to secure grant funding to bring these concepts to life in Canoga Park and potentially elsewhere in Los Angeles. And we'll talk a little more about this grant, this adaptation planning grant, but we're really excited to announce this original planning grant is now turning into a $31 million implementation grant, which we're working on currently. High heat, high vulnerability. So in looking at the Canoga Park area, the study area selected was the Canoga Park neighborhood in the western portion of the San Fernando Valley. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the valley during the summer and now even in the fall or sometimes in the winter can exceed temperatures of 100 degrees for multiple days at a time, with many neighborhoods lacking shade trees, shade structures, and having large, wide open streets causing an urban heat island effect. The graphic in the upper right illustrates how hot Los Angeles will get within the next 50 to 100 years, with extreme heat days exceeding 100 days or more per year by 2050. 2050 may sound like a ways off, but it really is only about 30 years away. In this study area shown on the map, the corridors selected were focused around commercial districts directly adjacent to residential, schools, and parks. In our study, we found many people walked, biked, or shared a single vehicle per household to access services in the Canoga Park neighborhood. So I really do love this graphic, actually. It's really interesting. This graphic shows how the cycle of reliance on vehicles in Los Angeles hinders a pleasant walking and biking experience. So the first image on the left, it says, because most people drive, there's a lot of congestion. Our cities are highly paved, roads and parking lots. Now that means there's limited space for trees and air quality is degraded by emissions. So now it's too hot to walk, bike, wait for transit, wait for your bus, or even your Uber if people are still using Uber. It feels unsafe to walk and bike. Transit is slow and unpleasant to wait. So what happens? You continue to drive. Very interesting, but we really want to break this cycle. Talk a little bit about the project timeline. In 2019, we conducted community outreach events, engaging local community members through the assistance of the council office, Cal State Northridge student volunteers, and our consultants. We truly wanted to gather honest feedback on which streets were most walked and biked, what people envisioned for the future of Canoga Park, and how the neighborhood services were being utilized. In gathering information and data, we were able to create preliminary designs and concepts for the cooling of the urban environment in Canoga Park and to create an urban cooling kit of parts, elements that can be implemented in other areas and neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles. Again, I mentioned this before, can we break the cycle? How do we break the cycle of the use of cars in these neighborhoods? We really want to eliminate and break that cycle of the reliance on cars to encourage walking and biking and actually make it a pleasant walking and biking experience. In presenting and studying multiple solutions for cooling the urban environment, shade trees, planting areas with the removal of heat reflecting pavement, cool pavement coatings for streets, as well as separated shaded bikeways have proven to cool the urban environment significantly and have positive environmental effects. For residents who do not have access to vehicles and utilize public transit, such as the Orange Line and other local buses, the gap between their home and stations can be critical, which is called that first last mile experience. So it's crucial to cool those walking and biking spaces. Tree and shade structures can cool surfaces by as much as 45 degrees, with cool paving reflecting sunlight instead of absorbing it, which can cool surfaces by as much as 20 degrees. Those numbers are significant. And as California street trees, the implementation of street trees, it's been proven that it's removed up to 570 tons of CO2 annually, equivalent to taking 120,000 cars off the road. So in gathering feedback from the community, 3 areas were selected for a more focused study. Sherman Way, which runs east-west, the Orange Line area, which runs north-south, and the Owens Mouth area, which again runs north-south. But today we're mainly going to be speaking about the Sherman Way corridor. I'm now going to pass it off to Ernesto, and he's going to talk a little bit about the exploratory preliminary strategies.
Thank you, Alexander. So, in exploring the preliminary strategies, we developed this matrix that you see above to show different benefits of cool pavement, street trees, shade structures, green infrastructure, and hydration stations. As you can see, cool pavement, street trees, and green infrastructure provide the most benefits. The image on the right is a clear example of the current conditions along Sherman Way. So by implementing these strategies, cool paving, double row of shade trees, green infrastructure, as well as pedestrian safety improvements, Sherman Way, as well as other streets in Los Angeles, can become safe, cool environment, encouraging walking, biking, and potentially minimizing the reliance of vehicles. And all of this will help lower greenhouse gas emissions. The image of Owens Mouth on the right is a typical view that many would see in Los Angeles, and particularly in the San Fernando Valley. Palm trees lining the streets, no sidewalk space for walking, and no shade. The implementation of the kit of parts elements such as shade trees, cool paving, green infrastructure, and pedestrian and bike safety improvements, like we see here on Owens Mouth, in the city of Los Angeles, it will encourage walking and biking and potentially minimizing the reliance of vehicles, as mentioned before, and the lowering of greenhouse gas emissions. So we are excited to have the Canoga Park project be a model for urban cooling strategies throughout the city of Los Angeles.